After the amnesia, I became the white moonlight in my husband's heart. At the commencement ceremony, I finally gathered the courage to confess to my longtime crush. Instead, I stepped off the curb straight into traffic. When I opened my eyes again, he was standing over me, face cold. Awake? Perfect. Let's talk divorce papers. Me? I hadn't even confessed. How did we jump straight to divorce? One on the commencement lawn, I finally screwed up the nerve to tell Adrian I liked him. Across the crosswalk he was posing for photos in his gown, wind tossing the tassel on his mortarboard. I dashed toward him, never noticing the red light. The crash threw me sideways, black flooded in. When the darkness lifted, the first thing I saw was the white ceiling of a hospital room. Adrian stood at the foot of the bed, our first real conversation ever. He lifted his gaze from the four-bag to my face. I noticed the platinum wedding band on his left hand. So the guy I'd adored for 4 years was already taken. I swallowed the sting and managed a smile. Sterling, what are you doing here? I tried to push upright and felt the thick gauze wrapped around my arm. Adrian pulled a stool closer, voice iced over. Jane, you really commit to a role. Faking an accident just to force a divorce? I blinked at him, completely lost. Divorce? I hadn't even graduated. How could I be married, let alone divorcing? A nurse bustled in with a tray of dressings. Sterling, you're still here? Ma'am, you're lucky he happened to be passing, stabilized you on the spot. Without him you'd be looking at a lot worse than a broken arm. While she cleaned the scrape, I caught the glint of a ring on my own right hand, same design as his. A matching set. My stomach lurched. When the door shut behind her I grabbed Adrian's sleeve. You're Adrian, Jujong Med School, class of 2018, right? He wrenched free, revulsion clear. Since you're conscious, we can finalize the divorce papers, too. This was insane. 1 minute I'm racing to confess, next I'm accused of staging a crash for alimony. Either I'd lost my mind or he had. Sterling, wait! A tiny blur shot into the room and flung itself at him. I stared. A little boy with Adrian's eyes buried his face in Adrian's neck. Adrian rested a protective hand on the child's back. I lifted my uninjured hand. Hey, cutie, can Auntie pinch those cheeks? The boy shrank closer to Adrian. Sorry, sweetheart, you're just so adorable. Adrian's frown deepened. You stopped me to say what? I know this sounds impossible, but I don't remember any of this. My last memory is running toward the commencement gate. He cut in. So you're claiming amnesia? Amnesia. Yes. That had to be it. I nodded so hard the pillow rustled. He opened a leather folio and tossed a document onto my blanket. These are the terms you demanded. Sign when you're ready. Words tangled in my throat. The little boy's lower lip trembled. Could we not discuss this in front of a child? Adrian snorted. He's not some child, Morgan. He's ours. My world tilted. And when you were having dinner with your new man, did you worry about his emotional health? I hadn't processed our son before the second bombshell flattened me. I gaped at the kid. He ignored me, burrowing deeper into Adrian's collar. Too much data system crash. 3. It took the rest of the day for the facts to sort themselves. I really had amnesia. I was still me, Adrian was still Adrian, only we were married with a toddler. Yet the divorce papers on the tray table whispered that something had shattered. Cheating? Me? I'd trade reality for a prank before I'd trade Adrian for anyone. Where had the timeline split? How did I sew the pieces back? I raked fingers through my hair, nerves sparking. A soft knock. Mommy? The door cracked. Colin peeked through. Daddy says you have to clean your hand. Here's the iodine. He clutched the brown bottle like treasure. I motioned him in. My hand hurts. Can you bring it closer? He hesitated, then toddled over and set the bottle on the nightstand. I scooped him onto my lap. His eyes were mine, round, bright as nose, and jaw pure Adrian. My heart folded. I hugged him, inhaling baby shampoo, and planted a loud kiss on his cheek. He flushed crimson, stiffened a second, then flung tiny arms around my neck. "You smell good, Mommy." Lethal levels of cuteness. I was still basking when the door reopened. Adrian in gray cotton sweats, hair damp, a bead of water disappearing beneath his collar. My pulse sprinted. He didn't bother to hide the cool disdain. "Still playing devoted now, Jane? Bit late, don't you think?" I didn't dash. His expression said any defense was pointless. I shut my mouth. "Forget it. I'll be in the study." I slipped out. Colin peeked at me over Adrian's shoulder. Husband and child both on the opposite shore, and no bridge in sight. I started to let my mind run wild. If that was true, then why had we ever chosen to get married? Why had we decided to have a child? Outside the balcony a full moon hung high, and the night wind blew my already scattered feelings into even worse chaos. Nothing had changed. It felt as if only I had. The master suite held just one big bed. The entire room was decorated in the plainest black, white, and gray. Aside from that, it was spotlessly clean, the faint scent of gardenias drifting constantly into my nose. I remembered this was a fragrance I loved. I walked to the walk-in closet, wanting to find a set of my own pajamas, but all I saw was black, every piece men's. No choice. I had to knock on the study door. "Excuse me." "Husband, sorry to bother you." I spoke with utmost respect. Adrian, working at his computer, lifted his head at the sound. The gold-rimmed glasses on the bridge of his nose made him look irresistibly alluring and aloof. "Do you know where my pajamas are?" I searched the walk-in closet in the master suite and couldn't find any. Adrian stared at me for several seconds without speaking. Just when I thought he wouldn't answer and was about to leave, he suddenly rose from his chair and walked toward me. He stood straight in front of me. At 6'1" he towered over my 5'5", making me feel positively petite. Adrian curved his lips and slid his hands into his pockets. "So, you plan to keep pretending you've lost your memory?" I swallowed, not knowing what to say. Besides, even if I told the truth, he wouldn't believe me. Luckily, he didn't press further this time. He stepped past me and headed down the hall. I stood there at a loss. He glanced back, meeting my eyes from the corner of his gaze. "Not coming?" I hurried after him like an eager puppy, keeping a respectful distance. "Thank you." 2 minutes later, when I happily opened the wardrobe door to grab pajamas, the next second I slammed it shut with a bang. My face burned crimson. It was absolutely unlookable. "This is..." I couldn't finish, but I was sure Adrian knew. Because right now he stood leaning against the doorframe, arms folded, watching me in silence as if to say, "Keep performing, I'll just stand here and enjoy the show." I drew a deep breath and slowly opened the door again. The style of clothing inside was so risque I could hardly believe it, like what a nightclub hostess would wear, scraps of fabric that barely covered anything. Wait, after I graduated? No, after I got married had my taste really become this flamboyant and sexy? The maddening part was that Adrian had no intention of leaving. I could only ignore his stare as best I could, turn my back, and rifle through the hangers from end to end, but I couldn't find a single normal item. I sighed inwardly, turned, and who knows what I was thinking, asked Adrian, "Husband, which piece do you like to see me wear?" Then I watched his eyes darken several shades. He gave a cold snort, spun on his heel, and stalked out, slamming the door so hard it rattled me. Why on earth was he angry? People say a woman's heart is an ocean needle, but a man's heart is even harder to fathom. Clutching the pajamas, I walked to the bathroom. A sudden thought flashed through my mind: maybe the reason we'd divorced was sexual incompatibility. After my shower I draped a cardigan over myself and went to Colin's nursery. The room was warm and cozy. It was obvious Adrian treated our son well and put real effort into him. I tiptoed in. He'd already fallen into sweet sleep, hugging a stuffed toy. I gently pulled the little blanket he'd kicked off back over him, drew the thumb from his mouth, and dabbed it carefully with a tissue. Only after doing all this did I finally feel that intimate flush of motherhood. But I only knew he was called Colin, no idea how old he was. I looked at our marriage certificate, dated 4 years ago, so Colin had to be about 3. I stroked his hair, stood, and slipped out. The moment I shut the door and turned, I found the man himself standing right in front of me. We were so close that if I lifted my head my forehead would brush his chin. My back pressed flat to the door, Adrian seemed oblivious, making no move to back away. My heart pounded so wildly I feared it might jump into my throat. "Are you done working?" The atmosphere was awkward, I didn't know what to say next. "Then, ready for bed?" He neither replied nor moved. I hugged the cardigan tighter, trying to hide the scandalously skimpy pajamas underneath. "I'll go rest first, then." I edged sideways and fled into the master suite, dived under the covers, and lay perfectly still. Soon the door opened, Adrian came in. Seeing me in bed, he paused mid-step and simply stood there staring. His gaze made my scalp tingle. "Husband, which side do you usually take?" No reply. Had his personality turned odd in the years I'd forgotten? He kept going silent and staring coldly. I pulled a face, threw the covers aside, and stood at the bedside. "You pick first." "Stingy Adrian." I cursed him silently, sure he hadn't heard. This time he finally moved, walked to the far side, lay down, and ignoring me slapped the lamp off. Pitch black. Lucky I didn't have night blindness, or I'd have punched someone. Feeling my way, I slipped back under the quilt. He breathed evenly beside me. Everything was calm, yet I couldn't sleep at all. My mind felt like a pot of glue, messy and useless. Already irritable, I became more annoyed when the cardigan seam irritated my sore arm. I shifted slightly. When he didn't react, I sat up a bit to peel the jacket off. The instant I tossed it away and rubbed my aching arm, Adrian, who had seemed asleep, flipped over and pinned me beneath him. He leaned in, my panicked breathing scattered. In the dark I couldn't see him, yet I felt how close he was, so near, our breaths twined without a sound. "Still awake, Senior? What exactly do you want?" "What?" "You're the one who wanted marriage, the one who schemed for divorce. Now you sleep beside me again, trying to seduce me." "Morgan, I don't have time for games. Say what you want." "Seduce you?" I widened my eyes, then felt a chill across my chest. Looking down, I realized how revealing this pajama set truly was. No wonder he thought I was making a move. I didn't mean that. Sorry. I reached for the cardigan on the floor. But Adrian clearly intended to spend no more of the night beside me. He rolled off the bed, left the room, and threw back one last line. "Morgan, I don't know what you're thinking, but I'm no longer interested. Understand? Whether you're faking amnesia or seducing me, it's pointless. I'll take the guest room tonight. Do as you please." He was gone. In that huge space only my sorrow remained. I stayed awake, staring blankly until dawn. A bit after 7 I heard Adrian talking outside and a woman's repeated "all right, all right." Probably the housekeeper, I guessed. Soon the front door shut and a car engine started. Adrian had left for work. I lay staring at the ceiling, thoughts tangled. I'd never been outgoing, otherwise I wouldn't have secretly adored Adrian for years. Now, when my crush had blossomed into real marriage, shock mingled with undeniable joy inside me. I thought heaven had given me a second chance, only to discover I'd already mangled this winning hand. Low emotional IQ really is a fatal flaw. While I was lost in thought, the bedroom door opened and a uniformed auntie bustled in. Seeing me, she apologized hastily. Sorry, I didn't realize anyone was in here." "No worries." I was about to get up anyway. I gave her a small smile, and only then did she let out a breath and step slowly inside. The doctor's already left for work, and I thought this room was empty. "Weren't you sleeping in your own room before?" "My own room?" A memory flashed across my mind. Yesterday, when I'd gone to grab clothes, there had, in fact, been a bed in that room. So I really had been sleeping separately. Which meant we were living like strangers. The thought made every one of Adrian's odd reactions yesterday click into place. I wanted to disappear. I buried my face in my palms, my head already buzzing with flashes of regret. Colin must have overheard us. He came pitter-pattering barefoot to the bedroom doorway and stared at me with big eyes, too timid to step inside. "Colin, come to mommy." I spoke softly, stretching out my arms. The second he heard my invitation, he charged like a happy cannonball, tackled me onto the bed, flashed his tiny fangs, and grinned. "Mommy." He nuzzled his head against my chest. The word melted me. My adorable little boy, no matter how much Adrian might dislike me right now, Colin is a piece of my own heart, and I will always take care of him. After telling the housekeeper we were heading out, I took Colin for a day that belonged only to the two of us. We strolled riverside. I bought him lots of cute outfits, and I also picked up some normal clothes for myself. After marriage, my wardrobe had apparently swung in a direction I can't even look at. I carried Colin while he happily licked an ice cream cone, his mouth ringed in white. I gently wiped it clean. "Colin, what was mommy like before?" He stared, lower lip trembling, then muttered, "Mean to Colin, scary. Kids don't lie." The word stabbed me. So I'd changed that much, so much I'd barely recognize the old me. Why, then, had Adrian married me? Could it have been love? If so, his taste is seriously unconventional. "Mommy, I want that." Colin suddenly pointed his chubby finger at the poster for the new McDonald's family bucket. Apparently no toddler can dodge the law of never say never. "Me, let's buy it." An hour later, Colin and I sat like two scolded pupils on the sofa in Adrian's office, heads drooping. The culprit sat between us on the coffee table, fragrant and unmistakably a McDonald's family bucket. The whole episode had started with Colin's sense of duty. Daddy was working alone while we shopped, so he should share his treat. Adrian's suite was near Riverside, and I hadn't the heart to refuse. Off we marched, high-spirited, straight into enemy territory. To Adrian, however, Colin's treat was garbage. So now the Inquisition began. "Why did you feed him this junk?" I blinked. Throwing myself on my sword, I said, "Sorry, I bought it for me, not for Colin." "So junk food is fine for grown-ups, then?" His brows knitted so tightly a playing card could have stood upright between them. Fried food skyrockets trans fat, overloads digestion, piles on weight, pumps in sodium that stresses kidneys, invites heart disease, and the leavening agents are laced with aluminum linked to early-onset dementia. He rattled it off so fast I caught none of the medical jargon. So, the short version? Absolutely unhealthy. He sighed, exasperated. Only then did I realize he'd been lecturing me out of concern. "So very Adrian." Seeing me tongue-tied, Colin jumped up, tiny fists clenched, and thumped Adrian's leg. "I wanted it. Mommy bought it for me." "Daddy mean." "I don't like you." Adrian laughed, scooped him up. The curve of his mouth, the tenderness in his eyes, pure indulgence, left me stunned. And those dimples. This was the first time I'd seen him smile so openly. He tapped Colin's forehead. "One McDonald's and you defect, little glutton." Then he glanced at me, lifted the family bucket, and instead of tossing it set it on the table in the on-call suite. "I'll be off in half an hour. Wait in there, we'll head home together. But go easy and don't let it happen again." Aloud? I exhaled relief and beamed. "Thanks, Sterling." His eyes flickered, he averted them with a soft grunt. Colin was demolishing chicken legs inside the on-call suite when a knock sounded, followed by a familiar voice. "Got a minute?" I'd been a little tight in the chest. "Mind taking my pulse?" Peeking through the crack I spotted Lila, the senior from med school who'd once been hailed as Adrian's perfect match, both brains and beauty. She'd chased him hard, he never bit. Later she'd dated someone else to provoke him, useless, because Adrian simply didn't care. "Lack of sleep," he answered coolly. "Rest more. We doctors don't pick our shifts. End of year chaos, half our staff out, 12 hours a day barely cuts it. Adrian said nothing, so Lila switched tacks. By the way, heard you and Morgan are divorcing. What's going on? Classic gossip. Under the polite concern lurked delight. Adrian raised an eyebrow. Since when do you chase rumors? Well, your sudden marriage was a shock. None of us even knew a Morgan existed. Her fingers curled, nails whitening. From the outside, you two don't fit. Outstanding as you are, she can't keep up. You know I've never gotten over you. Lila, he cut in, our marriage is a private matter. And we're colleagues, nothing more. Keep your distance. Crimson rushed to her cheeks. Fine. Got it. She left, silence returned. Colin, cheeks shiny with grease, shoved a half-gnawed drumstick at me. Mommy, leg. My mind was elsewhere. Lila's verdict, she doesn't deserve him, rang true. He's a chief surgeon at 30 whatever, and I, apparently, have no legit job, plus a closet full of clothes that scream sassy cabaret. Wait, was I actually a dancer? I can barely two-step. Yet if I were a stripper, Adrian's earlier jab about dining with other men makes sense. I chewed my lip, imagination spiraling, doubts piling like laundry, while beside me my son demolished the evidence of our crimes one crispy bite at a time. Adrian was a traditionally minded doctor, and his wife had been a fiery, bombshell dancer. No wonder the marriage had never won his mother's approval. No wonder we'd ended up at the brink of divorce. So what was the current me supposed to do? Keep pretending I didn't know any of this? Or Morgan? Adrian's voice cut through my thoughts. I snapped back to find him already changed into the casual clothes I was starting to recognize. The whole picture gave off an unexpected warmth. I glanced at the wall clock. You're off work? 5:15 p.m. Beijing time. To be precise, I've been off for 15 minutes. Adrian continued, which means you've been zoning out at us for a full quarter hour. I blinked like an idiot, my first coherent thought, so even a top student clocks out right on the dot. All of a sudden it hit me, we actually had a few things in common. 7 on the way home we took Adrian's car. Colin had his own safety seat. I hesitated, recalling the scene in the attending lounge a moment ago, and decided to climb into the back. My hand had just touched the door handle when a lazy voice drifted from the front. Am I your chauffeur? I let go at once and manufactured an excuse. No, I just wanted to check out the view from the back. Adrian flicked me a look, the kind reserved for the hopelessly dim. We'd barely driven 2 blocks before Colin conked out. Adrian and I sat in silence, awkwardness flowed between us like heavy fog. Senior, why did you marry me back then? Curiosity finally won. I had to ask. He'd been outstanding, with far better options, yet he'd chosen me. I couldn't puzzle it out. What's the point of bringing that up now? His eyes stayed on the road, as if the topic bored him as much as discussing the cafeteria menu. Right. No point. We were almost divorced. The instant we got home Adrian disappeared into the study, and we didn't run into each other again all evening. I figured he didn't want any more contact than necessary. I bathed Colin, coaxed him to sleep, and had just shut the nursery door when Adrian stepped out of the study and came straight toward me. Colin's asleep? I nodded, unsure what else to say. Well, you've had a long day. Get some rest. I'm turning in. I started toward the guest room, but as I passed him he caught my wrist. Where do you think you're going? I blinked, dazed. The guest room. Adrian's brows drew together, his face darkened a shade. Sterling intends to live separately? Bear in mind we're not divorced yet. No, it's just that Auntie told me we. Whatever people tell you, you believe? Don't you have a single judgment of your own? That shut me up. Of course I had no judgment, I couldn't remember anything. How could I judge? But his tone implied we had shared a bed before. So I trudged to the guest room, grabbed my pillow, and rolled back into the master suite, forced to share a mattress with Adrian while fully conscious. I was so tense I could hardly breathe. The shower drummed behind the bathroom door. Imagining him in there, I felt my heart sprint and my cheeks burn. Damn it. No way I could sleep. I sat up, ready to sneak back to the guest room just as the bathroom door swung open. Picture a leading man stepping straight out of a drama, Adrian half naked, water drops gliding down the ridges of an 8-pack he made no effort to hide. I swallowed loudly while my face combusted. The next second I dove under the quilt and hid. Illusion, illusion, everything's an illusion. A low chuckle drifted over, cranking my mortification higher. Moments later the mattress-dipped Adrian had slipped in beside me. Sleeping with your face covered isn't good for breathing. He flipped the blanket away and, before I could react, tugged me into his arms. Good night. A good night delivered right above my head. My ear pressed to his steady heartbeat, my skin soaking in his heat. Breathing suspended, I lay stiff as a boiled shrimp. Only when his breathing leveled out did I dare peek. Asleep, Adrian looked gentle, no cold distance, just an easy calm. Like a kind prince too handsome to look away from. Still awake? Want to do something else? I slammed my eyes shut and burrowed into him. I'm already asleep. Once my eyes closed, drowsiness crept in. Nestled against Adrian, lulled by his heartbeat, I drifted off. Still, this didn't feel like a couple on the verge of divorce. After that day, the rhythm between Adrian and me shifted noticeably. He stopped mentioning the divorce, as though those papers had been a momentary impulse. In fact, he grew almost clingy. 7 a.m., he hauled me out of bed and demanded breakfast. You yourself promised me love-filled breakfasts, don't tell me you forgot? 11 a.m., while Colin and I played in the nursery, my iPhone buzzed. I get off at 11. Make me spicy shredded potatoes and sweet and sour ribs, the specialties you swore you'd cook every noon. Thinking you can fake amnesia and escape the deal? 11 a.m., while I played with Colin in the nursery, his call came through. I get off at 11. I want spicy shredded potatoes and sweet and sour ribs. You claimed you'd cook your specialties for me every noon. Memory loss isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card. Friday night at dinner he looked up and said, I'm off this weekend. You signed us up for that parent-child activity, and it's scheduled for tomorrow. Don't forget, set an early alarm. According to this timetable, 24 hours a day, aside from bathing and sleeping, I was basically glued to him. Did I have a clone to sneak off and share a candlelit dinner with some other man? What irked me most was his dead serious tone. I couldn't even argue. So I pretended total compliance and matched his program. Since I delivered lunch faithfully every day, within a week the whole cardiac wing knew Sterling had a gentle, devoted, spectacularly skilled wife, and they showered us in flattery. Sterling is the envy of us all. Sterling's gorgeous and cooks like a dream. They even branded us the model couple. I fingered the divorce papers in my purse, cheeks flaming. That afternoon I brought Adrian's lunch as usual. A nurse said he was doing rounds and asked me to wait in his office. I pulled the least medical-looking book from his shelf. A tiny travel guide slipped from its pages. Me? Isn't hiding notes in textbooks what we did in high school? I sat in his swivel chair. The computer screen glowed with open tabs. How to improve communication between spouses. Ways to make her more attached to you? Family weekend outings, best bonding activities? What did Adrian do all day at work? Slack off. I was about to keep snooping when the door swung open, scaring me into killing the monitor. What are you up to? I whipped out the lunchbox. Waiting to eat with you. He stroked my hair, said nothing, only smiled and handed me a sanitizing wipe. Clean your hands, let's eat. We'd barely set the food out when the door opened again. Smells amazing. Mind if I crash the party? Lila. I stood reflexively. Hi, Brighton. She ignored me as though I were thin air, planting herself right next to Adrian. Eating all this delicious food without inviting me, so mean. I hovered, awkward, unsure what to do. Out. The word left Adrian's lips, light but stinging like a slap. Lila turned to him. Adrian kept his eyes down, not even granting her a glance. Did no one teach Brighton basic manners before entering a room? However pretty Lila's face, her smile collapsed. Adrian, what do you mean by that? Are you saying I have no manners? Is barging in without knocking, disturbing a married couple's dinner, the height of manners? Adrian countered. I watched Lila's face drain of color. She bit her lip so hard it turned white, shot me a furious glare, and stalked out on her stilettos. The clack-clack on the hardwood was so sharp I half expected the heels to snap. Not my fault. Why are you glaring at me? I muttered inside my head. I gnawed on my chopsticks and finally asked, Senior, did Brighton somehow offend you? No. Adrian kept eating his sweet and sour ribs, expression flat. I pouted and let it drop. Seeing how calm I looked, Adrian suddenly slammed his chopsticks down. Could you act like a wife for once? Lila is nothing in front of you, and even less in front of me. We're colleagues, period. The second she walked in you went quiet. If it bothered you, why didn't you say so? And why call her senior? Respect is only for people who deserve it. I stared at him. So he'd snapped at Lila because he'd noticed I was upset. A warm current rushed through my chest. He actually cares. Probably because that warmth filled me to the brim, my brain short-circuited and I blurted, Senior, will you always stand on my side? Adrian obviously hadn't expected the question. He lowered his head and continued eating. I will if you behave. I was about to answer when my iPhone pinged with a text. I opened it, an unknown number. Sis, I was pretty good that night, right? Want to repeat? My hand jerked, the phone almost landed in my rice bowl. I instantly deleted the text and blocked the number. What kind of raunchy nonsense is this? Did I actually cheat on Adrian? A chill crawled down my spine. I looked at him. Senior, hypothetically, if I really had cheated, you'd be punished. Got it. 9 Gradually, Adrian and I started to feel like a real couple, and the chunk of life I'd lost probably wasn't that important after all. What mattered was the happiness right now. Yet the closer we grew, the more terrified I became that everything would evaporate once my memories returned. Humans really are walking contradictions. Sure enough, the contradiction showed up in person. One afternoon we went to Riverside to pick a birthday gift for Colin. Adrian went to park, and I waited on the curb. A boy waved and called, Morgan. He looked every inch a college kid, fresh-faced, a head taller than me, and admittedly cute when he smiled. After living with Adrian's lethal handsomeness, though, nothing else registered. Point was, I didn't know him, but he acted like we were old friends. Morgan, have you been super busy? I called a ton but kept getting voicemail. What's up? My mind was blank, I couldn't even fake an answer. You forgot me? His eyes widened in disbelief. I nodded apologetically. He didn't seem hurt, his social butterfly self simply rebooted. No biggie. Remember when you paid me to play your admirer so your husband would get jealous? Still recall that? What? No recollection whatsoever. Why would I do something so stupid? So that text last week must have been him. Meaning I never actually cheated, the whole mess was a slapstick farce? Before I could recover, he hooked his arm through mine and rested his head on my shoulder. Kid, are you okay? Sis, that guy over there is your husband, right? Don't worry, I prepared an upgraded performance. No, I don't need. He launched without my consent. Don't leave me. You know you're my only love. You promised once you divorce your husband we'd be together. I'll wait my whole life if I have to. I glanced at Adrian standing nearby, hands in his pockets, face unreadable. Is this the calm before the storm? I tried to stop the show. Enough, get up. But the boy, high on his own drama, dropped to his knees and hugged my legs, face plastered to my thigh. Remember when you snuggled in my arms and said you hadn't had a fulfilling sex life in ages? The moment those words left his mouth, Adrian's expression blackened. Congrats, kiddo, you just detonated the landmine. I yanked the kid's head. Stop, you're overacting. He stayed glued to my leg like a barnacle, I couldn't pry him off. I nearly considered ripping his head off and punting it. Adrian strolled over. No, senior, husband, listen, I swear I don't know him, probably a mental case who chases random pretty women. Film school, class of 2019, performance track Leo Brooks, right? The boy's tears reversed course. How do you know? Brooks you is a good friend of mine. Given your off-campus antics, I believe I'll have a chat with him about your situation. Leo snapped upright and bowed 90 degrees. Professor, I'll be leaving now, bye. He vanished faster than a rabbit on steroids. Since Adrian knew exactly who he was, did that mean he also knew I hadn't cheated? So, you knew the whole thing was just a misunderstanding? Did you seriously think I'm that easy to fool? Anyway, topic closed. What I do want to discuss is this unfulfilling sex life you supposedly have. He was wrong. So I'm not satisfying you? No. Sounds like Sterling is discontent? Rumors, pure rumors. Adrian gave a chilly chuckle. No time like the present. Since we're free, how about I remedy that right now? Husband, I was wrong. 10 That night he tormented me in bed until I felt I might ascend to heaven. In a haze I dreamed, every day I dressed to the nines just so Adrian would spend more time with me, but he only looked disgusted at the skimpy outfits. In turn I vented that frustration on little Colin. His constant noise irritated me, I forgot I was his mother, not just Adrian's wife. Finally I paid a boy to pose as my suitor and had dinner with him at Bella, hoping Adrian would see and seethe. He did see and simply turned away, stone-faced. I ran after him, and on the crosswalk a car struck me down into darkness. The scene shifted, Adrian sat beside my hospital bed, clutching my hand. Morgan, wake up, okay? If you'll just open your eyes. Tears slipped down his cheeks. I'll agree to the divorce. I jerked awake, gasping. So that was the memory I'd lost? Beside me he still slept, arm locked around my waist, our skin warm beneath the sheets. Good, so it had only been a dream. Good, both the one I love and the one who loves me are right here. I nuzzled closer and hugged him tight. Wife, I'm kind of hungry, Adrian murmured, eyes snapping open, desire flaring. I love you, husband. I kissed him first. Outside the window the weather was perfect, our spring had finally arrived. Finn, thanks for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and share with friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing tales. See you next time.